Welcome back. This news alert now. The U.S. is sending 200 additional special operations troops to battle ISIS in Iraq. Secretary of Defense Ash Carter yesterday confirming these orders in his testimony before the House Armed Services Committee. Watch.
To build on that momentum, we're sending, on President Obama's orders and the chairman's and my advice, Special Operations Forces personnel to Syria to support the fight against ISIL.
Joining us now is Fortune senior editor and columnist Nina Easton. Nina, good to see you. Thanks for joining us. How do you read this? Is this a reversal of the president's strategy? What do you think this means for the global fight against ISIS?
Well, the other interesting thing to come out from yesterday, Maria, is that the president's top general said that, in fact, ISIS is not contained and never has been, even though the president just in the day before the terrorist attacks in Paris claimed that they were contained. And here's the thing that people need to remember is that it's not just about Syria and it's not just about Iraq anymore. It's about Libya, too. ISIS has taken over in Libya, where it's become essentially a failed state under this administration.
Yeah, that's true, Dagen, and they're expanding. We know that just yesterday there was news that the Libya component is getting very dangerous.
Much worse.
Yeah, Nina, is there any reason, though, to think you have these additional troops that have been announced, that the Obama administration will ramp up the fight in a way that will actually try to contain ISIS within the next year before the next presidential election?
Well, I think what we've seen this White House be very reactive, right? I mean, this is a clear example of this White House leading from behind. And so after the Paris attacks, they're feeling compelled to tiptoe essentially more into the battle. So I think if things get worse, we will see more. There is some wiggle room left for this White House, by the way. Our Arab allies like Saudi Arabia and Jordan, which were in the ISIS fight, have turned their attention instead to Yemen and other places. So you've got to get those Arab allies back in the fight and on the ground there.
Nina, do you think that this is congruent with what the Pentagon would recommend to the president, or do you think that the White House cut back the special force recommendation from the Pentagon? Is there any congruency between the Pentagon and the White House here?
I mean, we obviously don't know that right now. We'll see what kinds of news reports come out on that. But it's clear that, as I said, the president's top general, the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, went farther than the White House is willing to say about our ability to contain, in the past at least, our ability to contain ISIS. So the military guys are willing to go farther in saying that this is a problem that we haven't been able to stop.
You're being very diplomatic, Nina. I really appreciate that. Very diplomatic.
Who's writing these talking points, though, Nina? Again, you blame Benghazi on a video. They didn't learn from that. Somebody clearly wrote for this for the president to say. It's a very carefully chosen word that was just wrong.
Yeah. No, I think that's you mean the containment was wrong? Yes, absolutely. Well, I mean,
and
look at this president calling ISIS a... Yeah, and there's the climate change. I think what a 10-year he had in Paris, going to Paris and citing climate change as the most important danger facing us immediately, and just sitting in the same city days after that was attacked by ISIS. It's just a real political 10-year on his part, even if you want to pursue climate change.
Really? I was riding in the car thinking this political stuff on climate change, you know, like it's like, oh, 2/3 of Americans agree with me. He's basically cherry-picking data. It was actually quite hard to listen to, I might add.
You mean when he was talking from Paris?
Yeah, the climate change stuff. It was just going on and on and on, and he was basically cherry-picking data points.
Well, what about that,
Nina?
I mean, that certainly, I mean, people are criticizing the fact that he's talking about climate change being the biggest threat that the world faces now, while they're cutting heads off in Syria.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, again, I think that's an issue. I actually would not criticize him for going to the summit. I think the fact that China, which is the world's biggest polluter, was at the table is good. But again, it is not the most immediate crisis facing us. Clearly, ISIS and Al-Qaeda, which we aren't talking about and should be talking about, those are the most immediate threats. And by the way, I wonder if he'll be talking differently if we see any of those terrorist groups get WMD, weapons of mass destruction. Then are we going to be still citing climate change as the most imminent threat to the United States?
Wow.
It's incredible to listen to.
Dangerous times. Nina, thank you. Good to see you. We'll see you soon, Nina. Nina Easton, Fortune magazine. Kevin.